Have you ever wondered why is it that we no longer have effective black revolutionary leaders like Martin and Malcolm? The black community has been conditioned to revere and to quote the words of these great black leaders of the past, but to never ask ourselves, why are we no longer producing these types of black leaders within our communities? The reason why we no longer have revolutionary black leaders like that of Dr. King and Malcolm X is by deliberate design. Every time that I make that statement that we no longer have revolutionary black leaders, many quickly respond by asking, what about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? However, the true reality is that the rhetoric and stance of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan is not deemed as being the same level of a threat to the system of white supremacy as Dr. King and Minister Malcolm X were deemed. If Minister Farrakhan was deemed that type of a threat against the white establishment, he would have been dealt with in the same manner as they dealt with Dr. King and Malcolm X. This is not an attempt to marginalize the contributions of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's the truth. We must speak and function based upon reality in order to properly formulate our liberation. What's being taught within this video is the truth that will help you to understand what FBI J. Edgar Hoover meant when he said that there will never be another black messiah figure unless the U.S. government creates him. In 1968, upon studying the African American communities, white social scientists determined that it was by giving national media platforms to black revolutionaries that their cause, their popularity, influence, and followers grew, and then ultimately their power grew. So they now no longer give a national platform to those among us with true black revolutionary mindsets. They instead now literally treat these types as weeds, as a gardener would treat weeds in his garden. Gardeners deprive weeds of water because they don't want the weed to grow and spread throughout their garden. Likewise, the white establishment now denies a national media platform from those who possess true liberation mindsets because they don't want the ideology to grow through their garden of white supremacy. The white society now only provides national media platforms to their hand-selected black puppet leaders. This is what FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover meant when he said that there will never be another black messiah figure unless the government creates one. They now choose who to be our leaders. The true reality is that our true black leaders are dead, and the group of people that unalive them have replaced them with their black puppet leaders. These black puppet leaders merely gives the illusion that we now have black leaders, but they actually work in behalf of the white establishment. They keep us looking backwards and using worn-out liberation tactics. Their mission is actually to limit our liberating strategies to using only outdated boycotts and foot marches, because the white oppressors knows that we will never overcome their modern 21st century subjugation and oppressive tactics using 20th century's outdated counter tactics. These false leaders also keeps our attentions focused on issues that doesn't threaten the white status quo. As a result of this fact, there are now millions of African Americans that have never actually heard a true black revolutionary speech. In addition to these facts, white oppressive forces also deployed an ideological subversion system against the entire African American population. Ideological subversion is a psychological warfare system that uses disinformation and misinformation propaganda to change a targeted population in ways that are against their own self interest. This ideological subversion system was used to change our definition of what are black heroes. It changed black heroes from being revolutionaries like Dr. King and Malcolm X to now being athletes and entertainers that are contractually prevented from speaking out publicly about black liberation and against systemic white racism. It was through this method that the white oppressors removed black liberation from the collective minds and the collective psyches of millions of African Americans. It's why nowadays most African Americans no longer yearn for black liberation. Most instead only yearns for a comfortable position within the system of white supremacy. When black people say that they don't want to hear that damn black liberation crap because we're our own worst enemies, when they say that, that's actually a programmed response embedded into our minds through the white society's monopoly over our lives. It was created by this ideological subversion system. It's also the reason why the black masses went from believing that white oppressive forces were our worst enemies to now believing that we're our worst enemies. It's also the reason why black people's collective progressions have shifted away from the white oppressive society and has now been redirected against ourselves. It's why we're now more divided than at any previous time in history. Our core problem is that far too many black people are clueless of the many psychological warfare tactics that are being deployed against us by white oppressive forces. The more recent ideological subversion system they deployed against us as a means of preventing us the rise of a black revolution was when white oppressive forces co-opted the word woke and deliberately attached it onto themes that are unpopular within the black communities. And in doing so, they've turned many black people against the woke ideology, which includes our own awakening. Before the word woke was co-opted by white oppressive forces, it was used within black communities during our social justice campaigns to refer to an awareness of inequalities, with some urging others to stay woke. Now many of us are now speaking out against the term woke. The collective minds of large targeted populations are easy to manipulate when people are unaware of what's actually being done to them. There's even more. Have you noticed that virtually all televised panels that discuss the issue of black people, the plight of black people, they tend to invite black entertainers and critics of the black community? Most black entertainers and critics are not qualified to speak about the collective state of African Americans. Why not invite African American economists and social scientists? The reason it's being done is to ensure that the dialogue remains dumbed down and non-productive. Inviting rappers and critics to speak on black panels and summit limits the spectrum of dialogue to merely opinions, but allows a lively debate within the low-level spectrum. As a means of preventing the rise of black dissent, black rhetoric is being systematically dumbed down. Now, but certainly not least, the white oppressors have also trauma bonded black people. Millions of black people are the unknowing victims of the largest and most elaborate trauma bonding process in world history. Black people are within a trauma bonded abusive relationship with a narcissistic white society. And just like within most trauma bonded abusive relationship, they've manipulated many black people to believe that their mistreatment of us was our own fault and still is our own fault. It's a psychological mind hack. Usually, the term trauma bonded refers to a gaslighting mental abuse that occurs within individual abusive relationship, wherein which one partner is being manipulated and mentally abused by a narcissistic partner. Within that scenario, after repeatedly brutalizing the victim, the narcissistic abusive partner never acknowledges any of his wrongdoing. He instead minimizes the abuse and then tells his victim that the abuse wasn't that bad, so just shut up and get over it. He then constantly inundates the victim with demoralizing, negative, disapproving narratives about the victim. This is continued until the victim stops focusing on the abuse that was endured and instead focus only on the demoralizing, disapproving narratives. This shifting of focus causes the abuse victims to rather than being resentful towards the abuser, the victim will instead seek the approval of the abuser. This trauma bonding effect provides the abuser with a more favorable outcome from the victim. Rather than having the victims hating and resenting him for the abuse, the victim instead seeks his approval. The human mind is easily manipulated when the victim is unaware of what's being done to the mind. It's a well-proven gaslighting tactic. Likewise, the same trauma bonding abusive manipulation tactic is what white oppressive forces, white social scientists and white propagandists have deployed against the black population. After brutalizing millions of black people for centuries, the white society never acknowledged the full scale of the horrible things they did to black people. They instead insist that the abuse wasn't that bad, and they tell black people to just shut up and get over it. It wasn't that bad. They then constantly inundates the black population with fraudulent, black, racially demoralizing, negative narratives about ourselves. These narratives are also very disapproving. Therefore, rather than resenting the white society for their brutal mistreatment of us throughout history, millions of us instead tries to win their approval. Many black people now goes out of their ways to try to show white people that we're not all bad. Black people are within an abusive relationship with a narcissistic white society. And just like within most abusive relationships, they've manipulated many black people to ignore the abuse and to instead seek the white society's approval. It's a gaslighting psychological warfare mind hack. The minds of large targeted populations are quite easy to manipulate if they're unaware of what's being done to them. Once minds have been confused, manipulation becomes simple. The mind will even ignore common sense, and rationality falls away, even overlooking hypocrisy and deception. Presently, millions of black people are thinking in ways that are against our own interests and instead thinking in ways that serves and protects the interests of the white society. And it's all by deliberate design. The black masses not only doesn't know what's happening, it doesn't even know it doesn't know. This is why those of us who know the truth must teach. As long as you think that we're being controlled by a silly slave syndrome myth, that benefits our oppressors. Because we do nothing about it because we believe there's something totally wrong with us. But once our people see the truth, then we will develop counter strategies to overcome them. This is why those of us who know the truth must teach. It is not a silly Willie Lynch myth. If you think it's Willie Lynch, it's because you're ignorant, and your ignorance is being exploited. One love and peace.